This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 657 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Today's tip is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, makers of new Nalox Advanced. Support your horse's digestive tract from beginning to end with Nalox Advanced. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is from Megan Ayrault. Megan is one of the leading authorities on animal massage in the country. She wrote the book, The Horse Lover's Guide to Massage. She also wrote the book, The Dog Lover's Guide to Massage. Do you see a pattern here? Megan is a licensed massage practitioner for animals and people, and her tip today is all about hay racks and massage. Yes, they do have a lot to do with each other. But before we get to today's tip, let's hear from our sponsor, Kentucky Performance Products.
Well, if you're a regular listener to the show, you know we talk a lot about Kentucky Performance Products, and that's because they are a name you can trust to give you the most value for your supplement money. Kentucky Performance Products offers supplements designed to target specific problems that are made with high-quality ingredients included at effective levels. The company's supplements are intended to complement, not compete, with your dressage horse's current feeding program, guarding against over-supplementation, and each product is backed by sound research and a money-back satisfaction guarantee. And today we'd like to talk to you about Nalox, the original equine antacid. It's recommended by veterinarians and leading horsemen as a way of maintaining a healthy stomach, which reduces the risk of ulcers. Nalox can be given daily to horses exposed to stressful conditions or as needed when shipping, competing, or during stall confinement. You know, you can learn about Nalox and all the products at Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com. That's Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
Now, enjoy today's tip. Welcome back, Megan, here to tell us about how to use massage to help our horses feel better, therefore we feel better. That famous saying, happy wife, happy life, happy horse, happy life. Because if your horse is grumpy and unhappy, riding just is no fun. So what have you got for us today?
All right. Hi, Jennifer. Today I thought I would talk about hay racks. It's
hay racks? Wait a minute.
Hay racks, yeah.
Hay racks?
What does that have to do with massage? It's sort of a prevention topic. It's a bit of I do realize, and I will even acknowledge more specifically coming up here, that hay racks have some benefits, but mostly they're kind of a pet peeve of mine for a couple of reasons for the horses. And in terms of massage, of course, we're seeing, how comfortable the horse is and how healthy their joints are in many cases. Even if some massage therapists might not, depending on the techniques and style of work they're doing, they may just be working on soft tissue, or it might be a combination of joint work and soft tissue work. But we're always interested in making sure that basically the soft tissue is healthy, the muscles are healthy, and this is going to relate to the alignment of the bones, and that's going to include the jaw joint and all the joints in the neck, which, of course, are going to impact the whole body. But relating most directly to how the horse eats, what position their body's in, can really impact the comfort and function of the muscles and joints in their jaw and in their neck.
Oh, sure. Anybody who's ever tweaked their neck a little bit, or I'm sure many of us out there have done this. You're working with your horse, you're brushing the inside of his ear, or you're doing something, and he just has one of those moments where he swings his head around and kabam, right in the jaw. Mm-hmm. And you just get quite a hit there, and it just knocks it out of the alignment. There's that tiny little clink. Yep. When you get hit hard in the jaw, and that can make your head spin for weeks. So I can imagine a horse who spends hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day chewing and then is asked to use his neck athletically, if he has issues with things being out of alignment or soft tissue, muscles, that are causing him difficulties because they're tense when they shouldn't be, that could be doggone uncomfortable for that horse. He could, I can see how that would happen. So explain to me how hay racks can have a negative effect on all of those parts.
Okay, so, well, and thank you, by the way. You described all of that so beautifully. I love it.
I've been hit in the jaw a few times.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, of course, the most natural position for the horse to eat is with their head down, of course. But not only that, most of us probably these days, at least in the United States, probably can't offer this to our horses, but the most natural is to have their heads down and be moving, covering ground. So taking steps and, chewing a little here, taking a bite there, as opposed to just eating from a pile of hay in one position. So eating off the ground from a pile like that is not quite as ideal as completely natural. But it certainly, as far as the position that it puts their head and neck in and their jaw in, is much, much more natural. So the lower jaw actually has to kind of slide forward, or does, when their head is down, it does slide forward naturally and changes the way the teeth can grind. So when the horse's head is up to grab the food, now they don't necessarily do all their chewing with their head up in the air. Even with a hay rack, they'll reach up and grab it, and then they'll lower their head to chew, but not necessarily down to the ground. So they might not get to stretch their top line as much if they're eating from a hay rack as if they eat off the ground or from closer to the ground. So stretching their top line is one issue. But twisting their neck is also a bit of an issue, and the way they have to kind of, use their muscles to pull at an odd angle to get the hay out of the hay rack.
It's kind of like a dog pulls on a chew toy that you're holding.
Yeah.
The tug of war kind of an action. Yeah, you're right, because I don't think Mother Nature designed their body to do that, and if they're doing it repeatedly over long periods of time, you're going to be, you are liable to be causing the horse some difficulties, huh?
Yeah, a little bit odd muscular development maybe. And as you mentioned, horses do spend a lot of their time and should spend a lot of their time eating. It's better for them to have the roughage and not smaller quantities of concentrated feeds. It's much better for their digestion to have the higher fiber roughage content and spend more of their time doing it for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, and now some of us end up having our horses eat out of hay racks or elevated feeding devices, because sometimes it's a hay rack, sometimes it's a hay net. Or I've often seen places where the feed buckets are set very high, either because they were set when there was a much larger horse in there or something like that. So we have a horse that we can't avoid it. Our horse has to eat out of an elevated position way more than we would like him to. So what can we do to help alleviate those subtle problems that are going to want to creep in because of that position?
Yeah, and I do have a few suggestions for that. And I also do want to say that, yes, particularly with horses, like, for instance, if they're in a stall, and for some horses more than others, there might be safety issues where you can't have things lower, like buckets, too low down. And, hay is expensive. I know I've got horses myself, and it's always a little bit of a shock every time you get hay delivered. So you do, hay racks or some type of feeder can help with, preventing waste of the hay, which is certainly a factor. I don't think for most of us it's too much more important than our horse's health, but you can still consider it and take it into account. And then also, having the horse have clean hay and not, if you have, for instance, a sandy area and you don't want your horse eating off the ground to get sand as a, possible cause for colic and things like that. So, hay racks or various types of feeders can have some advantages, or just might be necessary depending on, where you keep your horse and whether you're allowed to, what their rules are about, using something like the hay rack. But there are, first of all, a number of more and more these days, which I'm happy to see as I've been learning more about them, of the whole category is called slow feeders.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's actually an entire website dedicated to the backyard engineer called Paddock Paradise.
Oh, I'll have to
and
check that out.
it's forum blog. It's interactive. You can sign up and be a member, and people trade ideas. And there's lots of pictures and videos of people who make their own slow feeding devices.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be lots of folks in very cold climates because there's lots of pictures of wintertime.
Oh.
But you're right. There are lots more options out there nowadays compared to what there used to be. If you need to keep your horse from eating sandy soil, avoid waste because he tends to walk on or sleep on his hay. And my favorite you had on that list was give your horse, quote, clean hay. There are a lot of horses out there who don't finish their hay. So people want to feed them less and less and less until they finish it, at which point the horse really isn't getting as much roughage as his system should have. But if you give the horse better quality hay, that doesn't mean you give him alfalfa necessarily, but hay that is actually brome grass or timothy or orchard grass versus glorified lawn grass, which has been baled, most of the time they waste a lot less hay. They don't eat it because it's not palatable, not because they're not hungry. So educate yourself on what you really are feeding your horse, because just because the guy who sold it to you calls it Timothy doesn't mean it is.
Good point.
So we've worked on those. You have a horse that he's stiff and he's creaky, and I'm sure he needs some massaging. Are there some techniques we can use to test whether or not our horse has a jaw that is been stressed out from eating in a poor position, or something we can do if we suspect that we can do to help him feel better?
Yeah, well, I will mention I did do a horse tip daily some time ago. So if people go to my, the complete list of the past ones that I've done,
that's on
I
your
have
experts
one on
page.
massaging the masseter muscle, which is one of the jaw muscles.
Oh, okay.
So I have
was going to say,
there.
what's that?
Yeah, and I can add a couple things to that.
Ooh, add more. This is a tip. This is a tip follow-up, folks.
Yeah. So that definitely I would encourage people to listen to if they're interested in that. And then, of course, when we're doing these, whether you find anything in their jaw or their neck or whatever, we can never really say for sure whether it was caused by the feeder or something else, but that's not the point. The point is just if you find some kind of soreness or reduced range of motion or something in your horse, you want to just do whatever you can to fix it, whatever the cause was. One really simple one. Now, so the poll, it's the area right at the top of their neck, right behind the ears, at that first joint between the back of the skull and the first neck vertebrae. So that's an area very prone to stress, partly because it's the transition point there from skull to neck, and all the various things that the horse does with their head and neck, they can get, including being ridden by us, they can get a lot of tension in that area, and then eating out of a hay rack could add to that. So one of the simplest things, and actually can be surprisingly effective, is to simply rest your hand gently on the pole, and you could do that either kind of mostly on the side that you're standing and then go around to the other side and do it on that side, or you might be able to just kind of have the center of the top of the pole in the palm of your hand and be getting both sides at once, be more on the midline. Either way, just simply rest your hand there gently and breathe and wait, and I would expect to be there for several minutes and just watch your horse's eyes start to soften and their head start to lower, and this is just going to really create relaxation for all those muscles crossing that joint.
I'm feeling sleepy just talking about it.
Yeah. Now, at first, your horse, of course, a lot of horses will raise their head initially,
Well, they're going to go, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. But, I mean, unless your horse has an issue with that area, which a number do, but most of them, once they kind of get over that initial guarding, and if you just breathe and don't put, you're not trying to push their head down or anything. You're just, if they raise their head up, you just raise your hand up with them so that you just maintain that connection, but you're not pushing on their head at all.
Good point, folks. Don't push.
Yeah, don't push. And if they turn their head left and right, try to get rid of your hand. If their behavior is escalating, then, take your hand down and you don't want to be pushing it too much. But if their behavior is not escalating and it's just some initial, they're not really sure they want your hand there, try to kind of just stay with them and follow their movements and not give them anything to pull against or resist against, but just at the same time be a little bit persistent. And if they feel that they can move their head freely, you're not restricting them, you're not trying to hold on to them, and yet you're also not giving up and you're staying there, you're keeping your hand there. If you're not scaring them by doing that, which again for a few horses out there, I mean more than a few, but a small percentage, you might actually really be scaring them. So again, if their behavior is escalating, you don't persist too much. But most horses will pretty quickly start to relax and actually find it really, find some very good releases for their pole area.
Well, good idea. I'm going to try that. Now I'm going to have to stand on my mounting block when I do this. Because
how tall is your horse?
Well, my horse isn't very tall.
Oh.
He's only about 15 hands, but his first reaction anytime anything gets near the top of his head is to stick his head straight up in the air. He's just a little bit paranoid.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do that because he does have issues with that part of his body. He came with those, so we kind of work around things as best we can. But that's a good idea to I'm going to try that. And I want my palm right between his ears where the little pointy top to his head is, and just let it sit there and relax until he goes, oh, nice.
Yeah.
Great idea.
And, if for a horse who does have some concern with it, you can do this, go through a process of gradually approaching the pole. You can get him used to having your hand resting, in the middle of the neck or even at the withers if that's necessary, and gradually have it move up to the pole.
He loves to have it scratched and rubbed. The thing is he's just the funniest guy. Every single day, I put my hand there, brushing his head and his ears. Every single day, he has to go, oh, dear, I better put my head in the ceiling. Yeah. And then once I start to scratch, he goes, oh, it's lovely. But every single day, we have to start with, oh, I better put my head in the ceiling.
Yeah, that's interesting, yeah.
It's his routine, and that's what we do. But I'm gonna do that one. That's a good idea. Do you have any other little handy-dandy hands-on things we can do to help stiff, crinkly, hay rack-ridden necks and poles that we can help our horses with?
Well, the two other things, one would be ear work, which everything I just said about the pole pretty much applies to the ear work. Again, if your horse maybe initially might put their head up, but if you can get them to relax and enjoy ear work, that's also going to have a general relaxing effect on that pole area.
Ooh, good. Go to Megan's website for more on ear work. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I don't have a lesson out on ear work yet, but
come on, hop to it.
Yeah, I know. Add it to my to-do list. And then the other thing would be to massage and stroke on the inside under the jaw, right between. You've got the big rounded part of their jaw on each side, their cheeks, and right in the middle between those, under their tongue.
Oh, okay. That's the itchy, scratchy spot where the no-seams give them lots of bugs bites in the summertime.
Yeah.
Never would have thought of that one. Okay.
Yeah. So that, and then, again, if you, a lot of times when I do horse massage for clients' horses, if they are fed in a hay rack, I'll usually, if nobody's looking, or sometimes even if they are, I'll take their hay out of their hay rack and put it on the ground, figuring at least I don't want them to undo everything I just did for the massage. So if they still have to eat out of the hay rack, 7.5 days or 6.5 days of the week.
There we go.
At least one meal, maybe they can have it off the ground.
There we go. Well, thank you once again, Megan. Let our listeners know where they can find you and ask you questions, because I'm sure these interesting little tidbits are going to cause us all to start thinking and ask more questions.
Yeah, and I love to get questions. It's fun to answer them, and if I can't answer them, they're great learning for me, too, because then I'll go out and find the answer, and sometimes they trigger ideas for more classes I can make. So, my website is allaboutanimalmassage.com.
All together. All about
animalmassage.com.
And I'm sure that you have a email me or contact us button right there on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And folks, if you have a question about massage and body work for your horse or your dog, you can pop that into Megan. Or if you are currently listening to this tip while driving, cleaning stalls, or riding and can't remember what Megan's website name is, you can always go to horsetipdaily.com, which you do remember because you're a regular listener here to the show. And when you go to Megan's experts page, her website address is right there. Or if you can't even remember Megan's name because you're a really forgetful rider, stall cleaner, or driver, if you just go to massage on the topics menu, you will also find Megan there. So there's lots and lots of ways to contact Megan, contact the Horse Tip Daily Show, and learn more about body work to help your horse. So thank you once again for stopping by, Megan. Fascinating stuff as always. To listen to all of Megan's tips, just go to horsetipdaily.com and go to the experts drop-down menu on the left. Don't forget to support our sponsors here on Horse Tip Daily because they make these podcasts possible. Today's tip has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, makers of the new Nalox Advanced. Ask for Nalox Original and new Nalox Advanced at your local tack and feed supplier, or you can visit them online at kppusa.com or look for them on Facebook, Kentucky Performance Products. Please stop by the Horse Tip Daily Facebook page and let us know what you think of the tips you hear on the show. It's also a great place to tell us about topics you'd like to hear us cover on the show. You can subscribe to all the great shows on the Horse Radio Network through iTunes or Zune and get your horse podcasts automatically downloaded to your iPod, Zune, or MP3 player. You can also listen to the shows right on Facebook. The player's right there every day. I'll be back again tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.